I'm going to be reading 3 poems from my new collection, which I'm very proud of. Thank you, Mark. Mad Hat Press published it, Anatomy of Curiosity. And it's available if you're interested in purchasing one. So, the first poem I'm going to read is called Lesson, and it was written during like the heart of the pandemic, and that period was a time, I think, when, well, as a teacher, we started teaching remotely, but the idea of what it means to be a student, what it means to be a teacher, how we perceive things, all became reevaluated. So, lesson. The teacher hits her students with a heart full of snowflakes, and an assemblage of crystals sprouts arms around concave mirrors on which students reflect, which reflect the students. Hence, a heart or two melt into a collective glacial crevasse. The teacher, an old scavenger with a tea cart and an optometrist's eye chart, follows the class remotely through the glass screen as they move with wind and prayer flag as sound, waves, or light peels, pearl-like icicles, which soften into diamond-esque tears, another heart or two thaw. A flock of murmuring birds fly from the teacher's wide sleeves that sweep across yellow earth, over droughty soils, willowy waterfalls. A silicon mask covers mountains and desert, and students enter and slip through walls of land that spine Earth's curved back, drown in quantities of ocean unrevealed to the eye in a God-sized bed of brine. Die as they take a million tests the teacher herself has failed, yet she hurls her voice over sheer cliffs as though her lesson could topple the cosmos, crumble Chronos on the precipice of being disposed, deposed by each question posed by students, by teachers, that menaces the fortress, turns words to ashes, and rises as starry embers into the depthless hush of time. Okay. The next poem, this next poem I'm going to read was in the Hanging Loose magazine, and it was issue 111. And this poem, Rival Dreamers, came from various avenues of inspiration. It started out from a panel of Anthony Bourdain's Hungry Ghosts manga. And also, Jonathan and Mark are curators of Lit Bomb reading series, and I was viewing Wang Ping and Gary Snyder reading at that series, and their discussion also inspired this poem. And then also, there's a koan, which is like a conundrum that you sit with in Zen Buddhist practice from the Book of Equanimity, and it came out of that. So I'll just read that, it's really short. It says, it's from case 52 in Book of Equanimity. Kaoshan asked a student, "Awakening is like the empty sky. It responds the way the moon appears in water. How do you explain this responsiveness?" The student said, "It's like a donkey seeing a well. That's most of it, but not the whole thing. It's like a well seeing a donkey." So, and the poem is called Hungry Ghost in an Udon Eatery. Oh, actually, I don't know if you noticed what I just did. I just did actually two different things. I started with one saying I was going to read one poem, and then I started introducing another poem. So I'm going to go with The Hungry Ghost in an Udon Udari, and then I'm going to end with the Rival Dreamers. This is all a dream. A rival dreamer just did that. That wasn't me, thankfully. Okay, so let me see. I want to read from the book, though. I don't know why. It's smaller. I don't have my glasses. But I put these nice little heart Post-its. Here it is. Okay. So, Hungry Ghost in an Udon Udari. Werewolf howls at the awakening wolf moon, rippling and responsive in an eyeball-sized sea. Hirsute, hungry, chewy, silky, noodle ghost, as witness, waitress, watering mouth or well, salivating stimulus, a dumb-braided dreamer. If hungry ghost is not hirsute mountain man in the empty sky with an empty stomach grumbling over the aroma of dashi bone broth ocean and the udon chef breath of the cook for constellations, Sirius in Canis Major with no apostat, the starving seven sisters of Pleiades, not the witches of burning forests and weeping bears and a teeny barred owl. Traversing the universe as a fable of this mind, our udon Shake Shack mind. There's an arachnid crafting us dinner. We are the shellfish, the meat fat, the wolf look of the bone soup, eating the hungry diner. Is the diner eating the deer or the deer eating dinner? Hungry ghost is hearing the cook avoiding an uncomfortable conversation by slipping out of language, off the tongue of spitting waves into primordial soupy matter, drained sand from dilating tidal force currents, devoured by ferocious nocturnal devotion. And now for those damn dreamers. Okay, this poem came out of a dream in which one of the central character of the dream started leaving the dream and taking control of everybody. Rival dreamers. The murderer lives in a guest house. As you watch her execute murders, you detect jaundice wash across her cheekbones and soak her eye whites. You believe this will be the flaw that brings her down. She wears a bright orange polyester dress with a yellow stripe that highlights the yellow in her flesh. You send a doctor into the dream, and before the scimitar slices his neck, you want to scream out, "Ask him to examine you. He could save your life." But no sounds are expelled from your throat. You're a passive witness, not a character in this backdoor drama. There is no saving the murderer. The murderer has a mind of her own, even though she's an ingredient in your concoction. The day trippers at the guest house are of your making. The murderer is not. The murderer might be a figment sent by a rival dreamer, maybe a dreamer who lives in a nearby apartment in your very large building. You have felt enervated of late, and now even your dreamscape requires more than you seem to be capable of controlling. You recognize the murderer as someone you want to help, despite the fact that she has murdered each of your guest house occupants, despite the fact that she's ruining your dream, despite the fact that she has put you in the nasty position of fabricating prey for her to slaughter. Finally, you awaken. Perhaps you awaken to your role as a pawn in your own creation. You imagine the dream's final scenes with eyes closed. The murderer must have been caught by the authorities. She wasn't really that clever, never left the guest house. Any detective sent by a rival dreamer would have noticed the murderer was the one guest house resident who hadn't been murdered. Severed limbs scattered about the anteroom, blood-stained floral wallpaper, and Persian rugs. You imagine your dream rival has continued the dream to its natural conclusion now that your figment has been unceremoniously eliminated. Or maybe the murderer is dead, you consider. Surely a life of crime leads to an untimely demise, or, as the murderer hadn't visited a doctor, her jaundice would have caught up with her even if her murder spree had not. Whichever fit conclusion was that of the murderer, you surmise you will never set closed eyes on her again. When you drift back to sleep, the guest house appears before you, though years later, you know time has passed because it is your dream, and dreamers have such insights. You have returned to the scene of the crime and again feel convinced the murderer is in prison or dead. Even though you are located in the murderer dream, you are in a different dream. You often conjure replicated locations when dreaming. It is a habit of yours. Your dream enters the guest house. To your surprise, she is there, the murderer. She is many years older, though her flesh has remained jaundiced, and she wears the same orange polyester dress with yellow stripe, fabric significantly faded. The murderer is standing behind the hospitality desk, checking in guests you have not sent to the dream, gainfully employed.